Hey everybody, welcome back to some Persona 4 Golden. I'm the Comic Foil.
I'm the Green Scorpion.
And we're doing something a little bit different today. Please welcome to the show my lovely wife, Allie.
Hello.
And my lovely girlfriend, Amber.
Hello.
Otherwise known as Ignis. We're doing a double date episode.
Yeah, this is kind of... It wasn't the plan for it to be the double date. So, while we're doing some digressing and side questing here, so we've been playing this game, and I talked about this a little bit last episode, that pretty much every time we finish an episode of this, we would, like, go out into the living room and talk to Allie about it, because it was always something with, like, tarot or spirituality or something that...
Jungian archetypes?
Yeah, or archetypes that we would just find really interesting. And...
Yeah, I'm a big nerd for stuff like that.
Yeah, and especially through talking about it, so Allie's been studying this thing called shadow work.
Right.
And it's kind of what this game is about, even though it
like.
never directly...
Calls it that.
Yeah, it never actually... I don't even know if, like, the people who wrote Persona knew that's what they were channeling.
Oh,
either.
no, they absolutely did. Cause that's just not Persona 4. That's the entire Persona and Shin Megami Tensei franchise.
Yeah, so I thought, it was too interesting to me not to talk about when we're also doing a playthrough of this. So this is going to be a more educational episode while I do some grinding and side questing and stuff. You know, and if that's not what you're into, you know, go for the next episode, because we're not going to really be doing, like, progress this time.
The one thing we are going to do is that one, super strong shadow at the end of Maru Q.
Yeah, that might be this episode. But yeah, so Allie, I guess, like, from the basics, like if you had to really, like, elevator pitch, what is shadow work?
So I think it's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot in, you know, like witchy or spiritualistic communities, but you could call it like a number of different things. I think more so popularized by Carl Jung. I'm like a really big Carl Jung nerd, because to me he really mastered tying together the scientific and the metaphysical, and like the things that you could explain and the things you couldn't explain, and sort of trying to hash that out as far as how it relates to the psyche. So I guess like the first question would be like, what's your shadow? Which is like, you know, that's like what these games are all about. Because I've played some Persona 5 too.
Yeah.
Or I've at least like watched y'all play some Persona 5.
And we've like talked.
Yeah.
I've blathered to you about this game so much.
You know, we talk about the tarot archetypes with that, but just like in general, you know, the shadow is normally it's an unrecognized part of the personality. It's normally an unwanted part of the personality, or that's what fuels it. The more that somebody tries to be perfect, the more that somebody tries to be flawless, the more they're normally fueling their shadows, a part of yourself that you don't really want to look at, or you don't like, you don't want to see, that maybe you think is harmful, or that you have been told is bad. Like I know you were talking to me a lot about what's his name with the he's got toxic masculinity syndrome.
Kanji.
Yeah, Kanji, who's not in our party right now. No.
Yeah, but Kanji's big story is, you know, he acts like a tough guy. He beats up bikers and stuff like that who are like biking too loud outside of his mom's house.
Because he's presumably been told, taught, or, you know, it is.
Yeah.
He now believes that the idea of what a good man looks like is a certain thing with certain boundaries, and that natural parts of himself that do not fit within that box are therefore bad and to be rejected and not looked at.
Yeah, he literally mentions during a cutscene, it's like, you know, I was into sewing and, you know, making crafts as a kid, but anytime I told someone that, guys would make fun of me, girls would say that that's weird.
And a lot of times I think the things that we dislike about ourselves, like, it is something that's taught. And it's, you know, it's it's kind of that's like what I think of when I hear when people say about inheriting the sins of their fathers. We inherit what we think certain things are supposed to be societally, or what a man's supposed to look like, a woman, etc. Yeah, that's what I really think about. But shadow work in general, the thing is when you put that shadow away, you're not actually putting it somewhere. There is no such thing as a vacuum. Something comes to fill it. And so if you shadow work, then would be the process of understanding and accepting the shadow, and if possible, assimilating part of it with yourself, because it is yourself, and at the end of the day, you have to accept that. Like something we talk about a lot is like that doesn't make you a bad person either. People make good decisions or bad decisions. There's no such thing as good people or bad people. So I think that a big problem that a lot of people think that they're the only one with a shadow, like that they're the only one with a dark side. They're the only one with flaws, and it's so untrue, because it's the most human thing possible.
Like, if I could just, try and trick everybody into thinking that everything's normal, no one will have to know that I have this dark side, since no one else has a dark side.
Right, and then when you start to trick yourself as well, that's when you're really leaving, I think, like, a shadow. You're putting that shadow into a vacuum where then it can expand, and it seems like almost what like a lot of the metaverse sorts of things in these games, it seems to be sort of that vacuum where it goes and it can expand and it can take up as much space as possible, and so then you must go and confront it and fight it. So that's what these guys are doing in all of these games. They're just doing it in a very literal sense, where they're literally going into the psyche or going into the unconscious, or you could read it in a few different ways, it seems like, but they're literally going in there and literally beating it up. Which if only we could actually do that, go and beat it up. But that's kind of what makes it fun and interesting.
So every one of these dungeons has sort of a pattern, where it starts with somebody gets kidnapped, because right now in the town of Inaba, there's this weird thing happening with somebody who knows about this other world, this metaverse, this TV world they're calling it now.
Right, that's this game's version of,
Yeah.
I know Persona 5 is a little different.
Yeah, they call it the Metaverse in Persona 5, and in this one it's just the TV world.
Yeah.
If you care for,
go for it.
Every game kind of calls it differently. I have mostly experience with Personas 3, 4, and 5, and they have a different name for all of it.
And what do they call it in 3?
In Persona 3, it is the realm of... I don't remember what it is, but they literally call it a realm.
I know it manifests as, this one tower. One corporate building is actually...
It's basically a tower. In Persona 4, it's the TV world. In Persona 5, it is the Metaverse. But... In every single example, it is described as the collective subconscious.
Yeah.
Because everything that goes on, everything that goes on in the metaverse of every game is affected by the general mentality of the public, or the people's mentalities, or what's in their thoughts at the time.
It's an interesting way to make it so you can go to one place and it involves multiple people's unconsciouses. Because I was going through some of my notes before when we talked about doing this as being a big nerd, because this is what I love. And in one of Jung's essays it was in The Structure of the Psyche. Yeah, he described the shadow as the personal unconscious, as opposed to the impersonal unconscious, which is more archetypical in nature, more objective, being able to look at yourself in a more objective way, which is kind of hard to even, consider. But it's really interesting how it's personal, but it's also sort of leaning more into the societal
Don't mind me, I figured out there's an easier way for me to do this thing I'm doing. Sorry, go on.
Oh, you're starting from the top, aren't you?
Oh, that just
no
takes
idea
me to
what
3.
you're doing.
Yeah, no, we...
Sorry, I'm grinding for certain items.
Yeah, no, as soon as you chose start from the beginning, we lost our chance of going to this top, so... I didn't realize that until afterwards.
Okay, because what I need is on floors, like, 7 and 8.
Yeah, let's just keep going.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We're getting experience out of it anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so the conscious...
Yeah, he described the shadow as the personal unconscious. So yeah, you're unconscious on a personal level, a very singular level. But it's interesting to me how in these games they sort of, it's more societal collective unconscious. It's something that he talks about too, and that's sort of where archetypes normally live, is in the societal, I can talk, unconscious. Because the archetypes are right, like shared ideas that we all share of, like, you know, what a protagonist, a hero looks like, you know, a magician, hermit,
And this
all
game
that
is
stuff.
very also into archetypes because
Right.
everybody you meet they give a tarot card to.
Which are just, which are archetypes, yeah. Because they're using traditional. Whoa. Sorry.
Also, I just feel like you should know they're not always dressed as secret agents. That's just something we got recently that I'm really into.
That's the look today.
I love how I love how we got those like in response to that one side quest about formal wear, but we just needed the gentleman tux, which was an equipment item and not a costume.
Yeah, so these costumes kind of happened accidentally, but I like them.
Get rid of Valkyrie.
Yeah. So
they all have their arcanas. That's
yeah.
cool, yeah.
So of course,
'cause this was something we talk about a lot, like in the beginning when you guys first started playing.
Yeah, that's what it was immediately interesting to me about it, was the whole archetype.
You'd be
thing.
like, so what? Yeah, you keep coming out, and he's like, what is even the moon? What is the moon?
What does the moon
that
arcana
even mean? It's the moon. Like what? Like okay.
Sure.
So like, yeah. So we got, of course, the main character of this game, and in all 3 of these last 3 Persona games is the Fool, which is how stories always start. The Fool represents like the beginning of a story,
and
right?
is normally the is like a an insert for a protagonist or the hero, or
somebody who's got a lot to learn, but
that too.
It should also be mentioned that the reason they are the Fool is because the Fool often represents the blank slate, endless potential.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anything can happen, which is exactly what happens here, because
and that's
you can do pretty much whatever you want with the main protagonist. And he has access to multiple personas that he can switch to and from on the fly. And unlike everyone else who has only one.
That's why too in traditional Rider-Waite tarot, like the Fool is number 0 of the major arcana and not number 1, because of that aspect of it being the blank slate. And any kind of like new beginning potential, all of that good stuff.
yeah. So part of the whole the gameplay loop of this, what will happen for every dungeon. So somebody gets kidnapped in Inaba, and somebody, we don't know who yet, is throwing people into this world through the TV. Thus we call it the TV world. TVs are the portals being used. And first, we'll know that they're there because if we watch the TV on a rainy night on the midnight channel, basically on like the channels that are normally all staticky, you'll see them, but it'll be their shadow self.
Right.
It'll be something that they really don't want the world to see, and now it's kind of being broadcast to anybody who happens to be watching this channel.
Yeah.
So like, whoops.
That's how it goes. The more you try to hide something, the more that it just busts out.
And it's interesting too because like the Midnight Channel, for all intents and purposes, like you can actually see the theoretically you can actually see the Midnight Channel at any time. You can peer into the metaverse at any time, but they do the Midnight Channel because the general populace believes that you can see into this universe via the Midnight Channel, so that's just how it works, because that's how the population, the populace believes it works.
Yeah.
Placebo effect is a crazy thing.
Pretty much.
No, yeah, that's so interesting. It is really interesting to me the number of different like. It's not just like Carl Jung stuff. I just talk about him a lot because he was sort of like the forefather of putting 2 and 2 together of spirituality and psychology.
They referenced him in Pixar's Soul that just recently came out. There was a Carl Jung joke. Said something about how like she's had all these like great mentors from throughout history that like all gave up on her. And something where she's like, oh yeah, Carl Jung said the same thing, and it flashes back, and he's like, my other self hates you! So yeah, we'll go into the TV world to try and save the person who's trapped in there, and then we'll be attacked by these shadows, and we'll basically have their shadow self kind of goading us the entire time.
Switch personas.
Yeah. So I want somebody with... Oh, whoops.
You pressed
I
Y.
accidentally... Yeah.
Oh well, just beat him up.
It's fine. So you'll basically be in this, like, battle of wits with the shadow self of the person you're there to save, who's kind of just, like, begging to be seen.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Yeah. The shadow side, or...
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that makes sense because it... the worst thing for a shadow self is to go unrecognized and to go ignored and unseen.
Yeah, and then what will happen, infuriatingly, this happens every time, is you get to the top room of the dungeon, and there's the person you're there to save and their shadow.
Right. They probably have to, like, assimilate.
And the person you're there to save will be like, no, you're not me.
You aren't me.
And as soon as you say that, the shadow gets super powerful.
Yeah, yup. Yeah, that's you're putting it into a vacuum where it can expand to enormous potential, you know.
And then we gotta beat it up.
Yeah, and then you have to beat it up because it's you're by not recognizing it, you're letting it go.
Yeah.
You're turning your back on it, and it'll do whatever the hell it wants, and you're just not even going to pay attention.
So you got like Chie, who's in our party. She's the girl with the short hair here.
Okay.
She didn't have a whole dungeon to herself because she came in with us to save another character. But, while we were in here with her shadow self started manifesting.
Whoa.
And it was basically about this other girl who's her best friend, Yukiko, and it was about their friendship, where the shadow self was saying, like, oh, well, I'm actually better than her because she's a girly girl, but I'm actually smart and can actually, like, take care of myself. And saying, like,
and
basically opinions that she had deep down of her friend.
Right.
That
because
you would never say out loud.
Because it is true, like she does, like, have that opinion.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have to be the worst thing in the world. It's like you can acknowledge, I think, that you feel that way, but then
you can even acknowledge it as wrong.
Would you, or you could say, because a lot of times I think when people have opinions like that, it also comes out of as a defense mechanism to look for something good in yourself, and a lot of times that involves comparing yourself to somebody else. To say that, okay, well, they seem to be at X level of whatever thing, but I'm at a higher level, so therefore that validates me, and that is a very normal thing to think. It's just then, do you feed your pride and your ego and, decide that lording it over them is the right choice, or do you... Because that wouldn't be good either.
Yeah.
That's what Jung would refer to as being, like, below yourself, is to debase yourself to feed into your ego. Or are you so above yourself, like what she's doing by saying, well, I don't really feel that way. Well, I'm not actually that. Or you're being above yourself, and ignoring your shadow, when in reality you have to just be somewhere in the middle and say, yes, I do feel that way, but...
let's examine why we feel
let's
this
examine
way.
Why. Is it because I'm trying to, is it because I'm self-conscious about being smart or not being a girly girl in this case? you know, and even if you do feel that way, you know, you also, here's the crazy part, have full control over what actions you take. You know, what do you say to your friend? Are you going to just be cruel? You know, no, of course not.
And then when you get to Yukiko's shadow dungeon, because she's the person you're actually there to save, her whole thing is that, like, I'm actually, like, she thinks of her shadow self as, like, this princess trapped in a cage.
A caged bird, as it were.
Is like a caged bird. And
she's the one who is the girly girl and probably feels like she can't be anything but that because she's been so rewarded.
And she even says, like, oh yeah, Chie is like my prince in shining armor, that she takes care of me because I can't take care of myself. So they kind of had the beginnings of, like, a very codependent relationship, but because they've confronted these feelings they had, now they can actually have a healthy relationship.
Yeah. Look at that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, I don't know, can you tell me anything else about Carl Jung?
Oh, nice move, Yosuke-senpai.
Just in general.
Sorry, I'm, like, putting you on... I'll put up, like, a general, like, time period or whatevs. Sorry, I didn't mean to quiz you.
He was Swedish.
See, for some reason that gives me context to understand who the guy is a lot better. Not Carl Jung.
Carl Jung.
Before we continue, though, I'm gonna warn you, you might want to switch back to a higher level persona because the persona you have equipped does reflect your stats. It's why you took a lot more damage than Yosuke not too long ago.
I just hated having to keep casting Zionga to hit these guys.
I mean, you don't have to. They're weak enough that you can kind of just wail on them.
I should just be rushing through here.
And if we need healing, we got Teddy with Mediarama. You kind of jumped the gun there.
Yeah. Well, you're putting me on the spot. You're making me nervous.
You just put her on the spot talking about... What's his name?
Carl Jung.
Carl Jung. I mean, if we want more to talk about, while we're going through this, like, he did mention that Chie's shadow was this kind of like this person, or the shadow was basically she was friends with Yukiko because, like, you know, she cared about her, but also she liked having her around because it made her feel good about not being the girly girl, having someone to protect. She was basically kind of using her.
Yeah,
and the same thing with Yukiko, but in the opposite spectrum. Like, Chie was her knight in shining armor. She's this caged bird who doesn't actually want to be, like, held responsible for her
own safety.
Well, so her family runs an inn,
okay.
and she feels caged by the responsibility of eventually having to inherit that inn, and she wants to get away. Yosuke's persona, or Yosuke's shadow, actually, because we didn't go over that, when his shadow first manifested, it was about this dude. His shadow was basically, Inaba's boring, he's a city boy like you was, and Inaba's boring, like, this is terrible, and as soon as something terrible happened, as soon as something, like, dangerous and or, like, tragic happened, he wasn't like, oh gosh, this is tragic, he's like, finally, something exciting happens. Maybe I can actually be a goddamn hero. Something actually happened here in this dumpster, in this dump of a town.
Yeah,
and his confrontation was kind of about admitting to himself that he did feel that way.
Yeah, right. That he was, you know, his reaction wasn't, oh no, you know, people are being harmed.
Exactly.
It was like, oh, something to, you know, shake me from the mundanity.
But, like, his accepting of his persona, of his shadow, and eventually manifesting in the persona is that, hey, yes, I do feel genuinely bad about these situations, but I'll admit I'm also excited because I like being a hero.
Yeah, and I think that's a really hard part, I think, about this type of, like, shadow acceptance that some people just don't get. They think that it has to do with, you know, looking in and finding that shadow so that you can, like, banish it, like, exorcise it, like it's some type of, you know, evil spirit or something, and it's like, it's not, it's you. You know, there may be bad influences, it might be tangled up under, you know, all sorts of, you know, growth of, you know, negative bullcrap, but...
These hands are such punks, sorry.
You think?
Yeah, they look like, from the
They're like
Addams
lovers
Family.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Thing from the Addams Family.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of. Except they have cute little faces.
I always think clever.
But
So what do you do though if like, because this is all about self-acceptance, but like, some people have things about them that are like kind of awful. Like, what do you do with that? Like right now, the one not where we're in right now, but the next dungeon we have to do is somebody that we think might actually be a murderer. Yeah, I mean, well, that's a crazy thing too. We talk a lot about like nature and nurture, and like what happens if your nature, we're like, say we're all born with the brains we have. You can't just get rid of your depression or anxiety like that. You can take meds or whatever. But I think it's the same thing for people with bigger issues. Like, I mean, this is kind of crazy, but there are like pedophile reform programs where there are people who are fully aware that they're super effed up, but but by accepting it and by working to not do it, well, then they don't end up doing any kind of crazy crappy stuff.
Maragion, nice.
So like, just accepting it or recognizing it isn't the same as like being okay with the fact that you're like that.
Right, yeah, you can in fact not be okay with it. You can be very not okay with it. And you can, like, and I mean, that's the thing, like, we're all going to have qualities that benefit us in a way, like, in our survival. Even, like, let's say, like, being selfish to a certain extent is a survival instinct. You have to be selfish to survive, but you also have to have the higher knowledge to decide when not to be selfish. And also recognize the fact that maybe you might be. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's all about balance, you need a certain amount of, like, self-serving to take care of yourself.
Well, like say that person who you might be a murderer. If they... Because people... If you recognize that you have extremely violent tendencies, and you don't like it, and you're willing to recognize it and take action, then somebody like that would probably turn themselves into the police or a psychiatrist or something like that.
Try and get help, yeah.
And try and get help. Same thing with like what I was talking about before. But most people don't do that. They say, no, what I'm doing is fine, what I'm doing is good, or they just don't recognize it at all.
Or like, sure, I have this one problem, but I'm like a good person, so it doesn't matter that I have this other problem.
They'll try to justify it, right, yeah. And I mean, that's more so what you see a lot of the times, because who's going to want to reconcile with the fact that they're deranged?
Yeah.
Or that, because, for some people, it's like, some people, it's a really good question. Like, are some people just born like murderers, or are all murderers made? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. That's a very tough nature nurture question.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of debate in psychology.
I think that for a lot of people it becomes so fuzzy because we have these formative years, right? Like in our childhood, for most of us, we can barely remember. And the line between nature and nurture is really fuzzy there, right? And so I think that's why there's so many people's trauma is childhood trauma, because we're like not even developed yet. We don't come out fully cooked,
Is it on floor 7 or 8 that we need this?
7 and 8, yeah.
7 and
I'm realizing
8.
It's an enemy that's actually pretty rare.
Okay.
To have show up. It's we need the dancing hands, not the golden hands, but
okay. Well then let's keep looking.
Yeah. The background for this
I haven't seen this
might
be
us looking for these things to make the boots. And that's okay.
That guy looks like a crusty Heracross.
Yeah.
Why is he beating them with corn on a stick?
That's a great question. So you can equip them with different weapons. They're always like the same generally shaped thing. Like Yosuke usually uses daggers, but through a quest, I don't even remember what quest it was.
Attack it, just basic attack.
Okay. We got the reward for this one quest was weapon that's corn. So there's like a few like joke weapons. Like the main character has a weapon that's a fish, and it just so happens that corn has the best stat of any of Yosuke's weapons right now.
Yep.
So we kept
I
it.
remember it specifically. We had to get some barrier corn for old man Daidara, and Daidara used that as inspiration to make those corn weapons for Yosuke.
Yeah.
3 enemies on the field.
So you play this game a lot, and like pretty much everybody, not every single character, but most of the characters have like some sort of trauma that if you have the opportunity to spend time with, you learn things about them.
Yeah.
And that includes like the nurse at your part-time job at the hospital, and like
Trauma for everyone.
yeah, so like everybody's going through their own struggle, and not all of them have shadow dungeons where you go into the TV world and battle their insecurities,
Right.
but like I guess it's important to recognize that, you know, everybody has something. There's nobody who's perfectly what's the word that I want? Who's like
No one is a Gary Stu or a Mary Sue.
yeah.
No one is perfectly normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it,
Yeah, 'cause yeah. The whole idea of that is just complete conceptual like mystery. Like, what does that even mean? Normalcy, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like, you don't even realize your trauma until, like, years later.
I think that's because I mean.
Got him.
Oh, whoa, those are big.
No, this isn't them actually.
No? Aw, damn.
They're little hands.
Oh, like the
Like the golden ones, but not
oh,
golden.
like the wealth hands.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm thinking maybe we should just go over to the other dungeon.
You're getting tired of this sun, aren't you?
Yeah, and you know, at least we could like level up with.
We are leveling up though.
Like it hurts.
Yeah.
Dude, we've come this far. Let's not give up now.
Okay.
Go, senpai. Rock.
I love that it has this like fast forward option though for battles.
Yeah,
where
the
it'll just,
rush option.
Yeah.
I suppose like while we're on the subject, we could like address the others because we were talking about the other characters and their
Yeah.
shadows. So we went over Kanji, who has that like shadow of toxic masculinity.
Kanji has been
His-
a big talking point in my house lately since we've been playing this game. Like
Yeah.
pretty much after every episode around the Kanji arc, I've been coming out and I'm like, I have complicated feelings about Kanji.
See, do you have complicated feelings about Kanji, or do you genuinely like him because he's interesting?
Oh, I love him. I love him no matter what.
Probably how they addressed it, the fact that this came out in a different country than where we live and in a different time than is right now.
Yeah.
It's going to have it. It's gonna feel probably a little weird.
It just would make me so happy if we could have
Just rush him.
more gay characters in media. And I know it's not Persona's job in 2004 to do that, but you know, it's
mean-
like it's so close to being that already.
I definitely get it. I mean, you know, I
Yeah.
grew up in a very gay household with 2 gay moms, and it was Will and Grace or bust. And you know, video games. is
Yeah,
a
you want
whole-
gay characters? Here's your show.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Here you.
That's true.
Here you go.
Here's your gay show for you gays.
Eat it up. That's all you're getting until 2010.
A lot of shows would have like the gay episode.
Yes.
Like there was like one Simpsons episode.
All
where
right, go one floor up, and then come right back down. The
you're
enemies
so
will
right.
respawn.
You're so right. So yeah, there's Kanji and there's Teddy,
Oh,
The-
Teddy's
because
is
because the bear-
interesting.
because of course
Yeah.
the bear's name is Teddy.
Right. Yeah. What's really a lot more creepy than Morgana.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I know, like, yeah. Yeah.
Just rush him, bro.
Yeah, okay. I'm thinking too hard. Yeah, so the first time we came to the TV world, so there are denizens here in the Metaverse in the TV world, and mostly they're these shadows that we had to fight.
Right. Just
I don't-
one
yeah.
shadows, you know, detached, running around.
Yeah, I don't think they're any particular person's shadows. I think they're just shadows that
Or
live
collective.
here. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know.
the collective shadows.
Okay, so they're like the
Societal
anxieties of the
shadows.
world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is why
I'm worried about my money. And that's like everybody. Everybody is like worried about going broke, and then you get a bunch of hands running around or whatever.
We live in a society.
We sure do.
But the one thing besides a shadow that we've met here was Teddy, who appears as a mascot teddy bear,
Right.
like as it like one you would see in a theme park.
Yeah. Seems to be a very 20th, 21st century type of thing. It's funny because the rest of this
Wow,
is very,
really?
like, timeless.
Wow, that sucked.
Senpai, are you okay? Yosuke-senpai.
You need to heal up, bro.
Yeah, that sucked.
Yeah, switch to Dominion. Switch to Dominion.
Okay.
You need to heal. Use Diarma.
And until you meet him and start talking to him, Teddy doesn't even really know there are other people or that there's a world besides the TV world. You know, all of this is just sort of normal to him.
Oh, wait, you told me about this. Yeah, and did he already have his shadow arc?
Yeah,
And when they were like, "Oh, what are you?" and he's like, "What do you mean? What am I? I'm me." And they're like, "Okay." And then he was like, "Wait, shit, what am I? Oh my god."
Heal yourself again. Don't risk it. We need to wait out the panic.
yeah, so he never had to question what he was until
Or his reality.
quote-unquote real people
yeah.
showed up starting to be like, what are you?
Right. He's like, "What do you mean?" Me.
Sorry, I'm actually having trouble with this battle.
That was just bad luck, okay?
That was bad luck. So Teddy even had this trick where he could unzip his head and he's empty inside. Like, he is literally just
actually
the
hollow.
suit.
Yeah.
He's hollow, which is very, you know...
Befitting.
And he's going on these adventures with you, saving people, being like... You know, and examining other people's, like, what they are deep down inside and the things that they hide away.
Yeah.
So he starts thinking, like... Oh, well, what am I like deep down inside? Well, I'm nothing.
Yeah, and that's even more horrifying. Or just as horrifying, right?
Yeah, so the last dungeon we did kind of did a bait and switch where we were here for Rise, the girl who's like our scanner assistant now. You'll see her sometimes during the all-out attacks.
You okay,
Her.
Yosuke-senpai?
Okay.
Yeah, you were in her mine dungeon, which was the strip club.
Ah, okay.
And she's the boss towards the end. But that boss actually goes really well, and instead Teddy starts freaking out, and you actually fight Teddy's shadow self, which
You can beat it. The
we
world
didn't
will let you.
actually think was possible until right then.
Well, if you have a conscious, you can
Yeah.
have an unconscious. If anything that's conscious.
And once it happens, it's kind of like, oh yeah, of course he could have a shadow self. He has
Yeah.
he has a character.
Stop your rush.
Oh no, Teddy's
Go ahead and attack.
Enemy defeated. You're
Oof.
off to a good start.
Attack again.
Someone finish it off.
Mediorama.
Yeah, you're right. So Teddy's shadow is basically a giant himself, but like the void is like spilling out of him, like through the holes in his eyes and stuff. You could just see utter darkness, and all he is talking about how all of it is meaningless.
Nice.
And that there's no big mood.
Amber will kind of
nihilistic.
Amber will kind of appreciate this one. A very Sisyphusian philosophy.
Yeah. Well, Sisyphus is the positive version of this story, I feel like, because Sisyphus generally kind of happy with his job. He loves his rock.
Even though it feels like it's pointless, a lot of the time.
Because, you know, maybe it is pointless, but it doesn't mean you can't have a good time.
That's true. That is true.
But basically, and the whole party had to also realize, too, that, like, oh, yeah, we need to, like, treat you like a person, Teddy. Because you've been helping us, and we've just kind of been treating you as this weird...
You know, like a thing.
With this weird mascot bear thing.
Yeah, you're just this weird mascot character to us. We don't really care about you. And they were very, like... They kind of just used Teddy up till now. Like, they were nice to him, but it was always like, Teddy, we need you to do this. We need you to sniff out where the person we're looking for is.
And we need someone to sniff out where this goddamn coal is!
It's not coal, actually. We already did the thing for coal.
Oh, what is it that we need?
We need, fibers to make the boots.
Oh! Got you.
Yeah, this one's a bit of a pain.
We got it, we got it. This is a podcast episode, after all.
Yeah, podcast episode. It's okay. We don't need to accomplish anything. It's fine. None of it matters.
But we're having fun
But
either
we're having
way.
fun, so
okay,
it's
Sisyphus.
So what's happened since then, actually, because we fought Shadow Teddy, and we, like, slapped him around, and we're like, hey, we're gonna...
We slapped him around.
Yeah. Oscar and I, our joke has been, like, we're attacking our friends until they learn to love themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, love yourself, goddammit!
That's pretty much what happened.
Punch, punch, punch.
Kanji literally punches the lights out of his own shadow.
Yeah, Kanji gets the punch his gay shadow.
Oh,
but then
gosh.
also helps him up and is like, hey man, like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
He'll figure it out.
I do feel the need to bring up Rise's as well, because, like, Rise's is a bit more complex than the others, in my opinion, because, like, she wants to show herself off. She wants to be like, you know...
Yeah, Rise is
look
a top
Look
idol.
at me, please pay attention to me. But it's
Yeah.
also the complication of, like, as someone who has lived in the boonies, but then rose up to become a star, but now has to, like, deal with the fact that, oh, hey, like,
There's no privacy.
who am I really, and how does the audience perceive me, and how do my agents and, like, the industry perceive me? She's a character of multitudes. And hers was kind of the struggle of, like, who is the real me, or are all of these the real me?
Yeah, that's the trouble with having an external locus.
Ooh, can we explain what an external locus is?
It's your ideology of yourself is based off of other people's perception of you, or your perceived perception of what you know how they see you. When your sense of self is defined by what other people say or think or feel about you, or how they react to you.
So basically, you can have a more dominant internal locus or external locus, right?
Yeah.
And I guess you can have both, but
I think I'm sure looking into it, everybody has to have both to a certain extent, because kind of going back to the idea of the unconscious, it being split by the personal and the impersonal. We all have an internal and an external world.
Rush.
I just want to heal first.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, because I guess, you know, when you hear it explained as like, oh, well, your internal locus is how you feel about yourself, external locus is how you think other people feel about you. And you kind of hear in the after-school specials and stuff like that, like, well, you should do what you think is right. Don't care about what other people think of you.
But, like, to a certain extent, though, that is also kind of BS, because...
That's kind of oversimplifying it, yeah.
Because our morality and our sense of... you can have a sense of morality in yourself, but it was silly of an after-school special to tell you that, while at the same time they're teaching you of how to be an operative in society in general. You know what I mean? It's like as if you aren't teaching me, you know, that I have to do multiplication and sit in my seat and raise my hand and do the Pledge of Allegiance to be, you know, a good member of society.
That in and of
Yeah.
itself is a can of worms.
Like,
Yeah.
why don't we just go around stealing
Got
and murdering
you!
and stuff like that? These are the guys we need. We don't just break the
Oh, the
law.
dancing hands. They were literally dancing hands.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you were joking.
No,
with,
look
like,
at
just,
them go. That
like,
is- no,
I thought
that
you
is
were
what
just
the
describing
enemy-
them as like they're the dancing hands.
That is
Oh.
what the enemy is called, dancing hands.
I should expect nothing less from this game.
Yeah. Well, this guy is a favorite of mine, Darren Gygas, the
Oh,
Hulk
yeah.
Hogan Shadow.
Which was also a part of Kanjis Shadow, because he had two Hulk Hogans beside him.
He looks like he's
fighting
ready.
along with his like shadow.
Yeah.
He looks more ready to do BDSM to me.
That's not entirely far off.
So this dungeon that we're exploring
Yeah, he's the shadow for everybody's like sexual perversions.
Yeah, this dungeon actually was Kanji's dungeon, and it's a bathhouse. And it's where Kanji was kind of hiding all of his, like, maybe I'm kind of girly, what if I'm gay kind of insecurities.
Right, because the bathhouse, you know, you walk around and you see other people naked and your insecurities go, ah! Because you're vulnerable.
It is a place where you're very
Yeah,
vulnerable.
right, exactly. Yeah, people feel like when they're naked, their vulnerabilities are all on display.
No way.
Even it's funny how we use even clothing as a form of armor, not just for our body.
Okay,
but
please
for our
tell me we got
psyche.
it.
Well, we're gonna need 5 of them, is the thing.
Are you kidding me?
I am quite serious.
Oh no.
And we got 1 of them.
Wow.
Well, okay then.
Do you see why I was kind of like...
Yeah, no, now that I see the context, yes, I understand now. Great. Do you wanna do this off screen maybe?
Dick. I just want to see how many...
We already have?
I
Because
already
we
have.
fought a few of them earlier.
Yeah.
All the way down. All the way down. There. Or no, yeah. There's the books. Where's the materials? There it is.
1.
Ah.
We're well on our way. So what we're going to do, actually, is just for the sake of changing the scenery a little bit, we're going to go to the other dungeon.
Yeah.
So you guys can see my least favorite dungeon so far.
Yeah, we're gonna change the scenery into something even more oppressive.